what I really wanted to do was focus in on this purpose. And the purpose that I was finding is that so many students are left behind in education, and they don't get that chance to have this kind of one-on-one interaction with a great teacher. And as a result of that, many students who otherwise would have been successful can't get to the level of success or their level of interest.
Hey everyone, my name's Kyle Walgren, and we're doing another episode of the Business of Education from right here at ISTE. Today we get to talk to an amazing founder that spent the past 17 years building great products at one of the greatest tech companies in the country, but now he's stepped out to start his own ed tech company called Kyron Learning, which is a public benefit company that aims to provide equitable access and high quality one-on-one teaching through conventional AI. Did I get that right?
Yep, that's right.
Rajen Sheth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Rajen, I appreciate you taking some time. We were just having some small talk before we started. You have this brand new company. This is your second Etsy.
With Google, with Kyron, this is our second ISTE, and been here with Google many times as well.
It's probably a little different when it's on your own budget, right?
It is very different for sure as a small company, and so, but a lot of fun.
What is Kyron? Walk us through Kyron, and then how'd you spark the idea?
Yeah, so really what this came from is that the bond that a student has with a great teacher is definitely inextricable. And in addition to that, if you can have a one-on-one interaction with a great teacher, you get much more out of learning. And so what our product allows a teacher to do is create interactive videos that feel like a one-on-one tutoring session. So essentially, this is a video that you can talk to. So a video where the teacher can teach about a topic, ask the student a question, the student can then interact with the video back and forth to really kind of deepen their understanding of that particular topic. What we found that does is, one, students get to interact with really great teachers, but then in addition to that, with the AI interaction, they can really deepen their knowledge and actually really get, one, an engaging experience, and two, strong knowledge out of the experience as well.
So if a child's asking a question, have you guys just fielded all these different answers, or are they generated AI answers? How are you guys coming up with the answers to the questions?
Yeah, so one of the things we've done is kind of flip things on its head. So rather than this being an AI chatbot where you're expecting the student to ask a question, we actually ask the question. And so what it is that a teacher will teach a small amount of instruction and then ask a question to check the student's understanding of that particular topic. And the student will then interact back and forth with the AI on that particular thing. And this could be things that are very specific or things that are more conceptual in nature. Like, for example, they may be doing reading comprehension, and it might be asking about the themes of a particular story or something like that. And the reason we do that is that we're finding that about 70% of kids don't have a question that they want to ask because they don't understand the topic well enough. This makes it so that they are actually asked a question and can actually interact to get the understanding of the topic.
That's super interesting. You're the second person today that I've had a conversation with around how kids don't interact or engage around the topics because they're usually, one, don't care about the topic, or they've been lost some point in the transition, and they just show up to exist and get their attendance up.
Yep.
So I think that there's some interesting ways people are using AI to drive engagement. I love the idea of being able to build individual learning paths. I think that we're going to get stronger students that might not necessarily been a student. I was a bad student, but I know that if I didn't have to read about Charlotte's Web or Old Yeller, and I could have read books about baseball or hockey, I probably would have been a better reader, right?
Yep.
And with the way AI is going, or the way that I like seeing it used, is creating those customizable learning paths. But you started in the tech space with one of the OGs, Google. Everybody wants to work for Google. Why'd you want to leave Google and start your own thing?
It's a great question. And Google was a fantastic experience. I originally went into there thinking I'll spend a few years here, and I spent 17 years there. And was at Google early enough where we first built out the education team and the products that were there. But what I really wanted to do was focus in on this purpose. And the purpose that I was finding is that so many students are left behind in education, and they don't get that chance to have this kind of one-on-one interaction with a great teacher. And as a result of that, many students who otherwise would have been successful can't get to the level of success or their level of interest. And so wanted to actually start a company specifically focused on that. I used to lead the AI team for Google Cloud, and I was seeing kind of the potential of what was happening with AI. And so decided to leave Google specifically to focus on education and figure out how can you do good with AI, and how can you make it such that AI can help equitably reach every single student.
Yeah, so let's just be clear. If my notes are right, you co-founded the Google Apps product line. What's the difference between co-founding a company at Google and co-founding a company on your own?
It is very different. It is very different. That's for sure. It's interesting because the way I tell people about this is the things that were very easy at Google are very difficult with a startup, and also vice versa. And so, you know, when we co-founded Google Apps, it was it was a challenge. It was a big challenge because Google at the time was known as a consumer search company. And so we were building out things like Gmail and Google Docs and Calendar and all of that, and pushing that into businesses and to schools. And we weren't known for those kinds of things. And so it was definitely a big challenge to actually get there. Um, but we were Google. And so as a result of that, having that name behind it really helped get that out there. As a small company, we're not Google. And so gaining awareness of what we're doing is more and more challenging. However, being a small 25-person company, we're nimble. We can do a lot of things and we can change directions. And so that's been really fun to see that, we can kind of weave as the market weaves.
That's one of the things that where my mind went to right away is like being at Google would be like trying to turn around the Titanic. Sometimes I feel like with my ed tech company, I get asked all the time, like, aren't you scared of companies like Microsoft or Google just doing what you're doing? And I think Google has a product kind of like ours, Google Reads or something similar. But I also feel like these companies are so big that sometimes they don't sell really well into the education space. How are you seeing the difference there from when you were trying to sell into the education space there compared to selling into it now?
I think part of it is around the level of focus that you can have on a very specific thing. And I think that, when I was at Google, I would rely on startups out there to take our technology and specialize it for a very specific use case. And the startups were usually a lot better at doing that than us because they were very focused on making that particular use case really strong and doing everything from the customer interaction all the way through to the product. And I think the same is true now. I think that there are kind of the broader products that are out there, but really doing things that are specifically oriented towards particular student impact is where I think the startup community has a really strong place to push innovation.
So you've seen AI change. Clearly, you were in the thick of it, over the last 17 years. What do you think is being like one of the hardest barriers of entry with AI right now in the education space?
I think the biggest barrier of entry is it's not yet clear where AI can have an impact, and there's not the trust built up right now in the system for people to utilize AI. And so, very understandably, I think a lot of educators are looking at AI very skeptically right now. And so one of the key things that we've been focusing on is how do we build that educator trust by empowering the educators with AI as opposed to dumping something on them that they would then need to actually figure out how to utilize and control. And I think that has helped a lot. And a lot of the organizations that are using our product, we're one of the only products that they allow in front of their students because they trust it.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like AI is kind of a dirty word. We all of a sudden it's become way more popular or recognized since ChatGPT came about, but AI is not new. It's been matching videos at Netflix and things like that for 20 some years. You guys say you use conventional AI in your program. Give us a little bit more in depth on that.
Yeah.
Break that down.
So what we're doing is that, well, one, you're completely correct. AI is not new, and there are multiple forms of AI that's out there. It's not just generative AI. There are many different ways of doing AI. We are using a combination of generative AI and conversational AI. And so what conversational AI is kind of more deterministic conversation. So what I mean by that is I say something and then it kind of fits into a few buckets of different answers that can come back.
Mm-hmm.
The advantage of that is that you can do things that are much more accurate. Disadvantage is that you can't do things that are more open-ended. And so we use a combination. We let teachers create things that are more deterministic like that,
Okay.
or we let them use generative AI to ask more open-ended questions that may not have a definitive answer. And so the teachers are empowered with both to figure out what makes sense for their lesson.
Do you guys have a hard time explaining what conversational AI is? Just because when I first, looked at it and read about it, I thought about like how Google will uh, caption your meetings or something of that nature, or speech to text. That's where my mind went right away. But that's not how you guys are using it.
No, that's right. We're really using it in a way that makes it easy for essentially teachers to do like multiple choice without showing the choice, let's say. And so they can ask a question, and based on what the student says, it categorizes it into one of a few buckets. It's particularly good, for example, for teachers that are teaching things like math, where you want to have a very specific answer and very specific set of visuals for particular things. And so we've definitely seen different teachers gravitate to different forms.
We've spent this time talking about Google because I just think Google's changed the world. But Kyron is your company now. That's what's important. How is Kyron ensuring that there's equitable access with a high quality of education through your guys' platform?
Yeah, so there are a few things that we're doing. One is that we are, from the very beginning, actually focusing on communities that are under resourced. And so, for example, we've been working with folks like Baltimore City Public Schools or KIPP schools in Chicago, really kind of making sure that this works for students that have not had all the advantages. And I think that's really important because I think there are a lot of products out there that are really oriented towards kind of the 5% of users that already have a lot of access to technology. We want to make sure that this is something good for students that don't have access. We're also working on something that is working through institutions. And so one thing I found with Chromebooks in education when we did that at Google is that because we were working through schools and we're getting schools to actually purchase Chromebooks, many students that never had a computer before all of a sudden had access to a computer. The same thing is true with what we're doing with Kyron, is that we're providing access to schools such that they can equitably distribute this to their students. And that has really helped because we actually have been able to actually make a difference for students that wouldn't have had access to one-on-one teaching.
Can you share some of the success stories that or maybe some case studies, highlights of impact that you guys have been making on some of the students that you're working with?
Yeah, I'll give you a few. Baltimore City Public Schools was a great one. We're being used in a number of schools there, really to help students in fourth grade math to figure out areas where they may need additional help, and that has been very helpful because many times a student might go through what they're doing in class, but may have additional needs, or they may have holes in what they've learned that the teacher may not have the time to be able to do. And so that's really helped there. KIPP schools in Chicago have been using this for multilingual learners, and we're able to adjust into things like Spanish. And Western Governors University has been using this for online education to provide help to students who otherwise would have to reach out to a teacher.
Did you have to be extremely open in what the use cases were actually going to be when building out the product? You just gave me two totally different use cases. And for our company, we've kind of seen the same thing. People will get creative on their own to utilize a technology that they like, right?
Yeah.
What's a use case that you didn't expect to see that you guys are seeing now?
Yeah, I think those latter two were really unexpected for us because we started very specifically with extra help in fourth grade math. And then what we found was the things around multilingual learners was actually where it really started to catch on in schools. And then the other thing that was surprising is the WGU use case where they were using this in higher education. And so we built this for fourth grade math students. And we realized that by working with Western Governors University, um, we could actually make it work for computer science students or data science students that were, in their 30s. And so that was a very interesting thing for us to see that we definitely did not expect at the beginning.
You said that you've only been around for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it sounds like you guys have got all kinds of traction already. You mentioned KIP, and that's a big school or a big school. I want to say district, but not district. A big school platform. How'd you guys find for like the new ed tech companies? What'd you focus on to try and get movement in those bigger school districts or bigger school opportunities?
Yeah.
Being a young company.
I think the thing that we really focused on was finding leaders that were very innovative. And I think that's really crucial right now. KIP, for example, KIP in Chicago, we have this extraordinary executive director, April Goebel, who she's very forward thinking with technology and with AI in particular. She helped us from the very beginning,
Oh, wow.
even before we wrote a line of code to help us figure out, how this could actually be applicable for schools. And so bringing those innovative leaders in very early in the cycle actually really helped a ton.
So you just mentioned that you pretty much did a case study before you ever wrote any code. What are some of the things that you learned at Google that really helped that's really helped you and that you've made sure to apply at Kyron while building this company, from maybe a development standpoint or a product research standpoint? What are some things that you had to bring over?
Yeah, I think that there were two big things. First is that kind of first set of early adopter customers. I think with every product that I've had success with at Google, Google Apps, Chromebooks, our AI products, we always had those first few customers that were visionaries, and they would be able to guide us in the right direction. And we're following a very similar process with Kyron. And then the other thing is iterative development and really being nimble. And so it's especially crucial right now with how AI is going. Like AI, things are changing every single month, and so we need to make sure to be nimble with how we're developing, and that's kind of something that we were really good at Google that we've become really good at with Kyron.
Obviously we don't want to give away our trade secrets, but you said AI is changing every day. Outside of what Kyron's doing with AI, what are some other use cases that you see maybe AI helping with in the education space that you're excited to see that it grow into?
Yeah, I think that the place that we're seeing it a lot in the industry is AI tools for teachers. Things where a teacher can go create a lesson plan or create a rubric or things like that. Extraordinarily helpful. It helps save a lot of time for teachers. And I think where the next generation and kind of the next big frontier is kind of the things that we're doing. How do you actually get AI in front of students so that students can learn in more of a one-on-one differentiated manner? And I think that's the next big wave where you're going to see more and more companies focus.
I love that. I'm a true believer that teachers are overworked, underpaid. They don't have any extra time as is. So sometimes getting buy-in with another product that they have to put on their list of things that they don't have to have time to do already, giving them some time back after they learn how to use the platform is probably the best thing you can do for them. Is like, hey, I know that there's going to be a little bit of a hill here to learn or to climb while you're learning this, but after you learn it, you could save 50, 60, 100 hours a year in maybe other areas you're doing. You'd mentioned earlier, and I try and keep it short. We are at ISTE, and I know you're here promoting your company, so I want to keep it short. But you mentioned earlier that you had a relationship at KIP that helped you almost do a case study before you ever started writing any code. I end every show by asking a question to try and help new young entrepreneurs coming into the space grow. How important is your network, and what are some ways that you leverage yours in a way that a new founder might not think to leverage theirs, and giving them some advice with that?
Yeah, the network was crucial, absolutely crucial, but it wasn't what I expected necessarily. There were things that were kind of expected, which is like through people that I knew at Google or through some of our investors, we were connected with people. But there were other things, like, so for example, one of our employees, his aunt used to be in education, who then connected us to Baltimore City Public Schools, for example. And I would have never expected that. And I think the thing that I had to get really good at over the last couple of years is utilizing every part of my network in the right way. And it could be relatives I knew, it could be people I knew from other things, but finding the right connections from person to person to get into to talk to the right people. The second thing was asking for advice from people. Everyone is willing to help you with advice, and so that was helpful for me to learn, and but also helped us develop our first customers as well.
One of the things that I went to with networking right away is like, how strong is the team over at Kyron after leaving Google, and how many people from Google left with you? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's always going to be an advantage. You also mentioned investors. It's a lot easier coming from a company like Google to have hard conversations with investors to give you a shot, in a new space. So that's always super important. But for me, I found that sometimes my network helps me in areas that I didn't expect it at all.
Mhm.
And just by having conversations like you and I are having now, I might come back to it a week later and be like, remember when I sat down at ISTE and had a conversation? This guy said this in a certain way, and it will dawn something that makes me ask somebody else a question that I might not have ever thought they could answer.
Yeah.
And there's all these like aha moments that I get when looking at my network, and I refresh the people that I know quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try and offer, whether my network likes it or not, I try and offer my network out to other people, especially young people trying to get into the space, because I want to really see the education space grow. It's kind of outdated. It's created a long time ago. It's underfunded. Capitalism could definitely help. And I feel like the smarter our kids are, the better our future is going to be. And I'm going to get old one day, so I need them to be really smart.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been super informative for me. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, if somebody wanted to use Kyron, how would they get a hold of you, Rajen?
Yeah, so you can go to kyronlearning.com and you can try to either use a lesson or build a lesson there. Or, if you want to get a hold of me, just Rajen at kyronlearning.com.
Yeah, and we'll put your guys' website and information in the link of this podcast. And I look forward to seeing where you guys go.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on here.
Thank you. I've learned a lot.